Hello and welcome to Think Fit, Be Fit podcast. My name is Jennifer Schwartz. I am the hostess and creator of this podcast, where we are dedicated to effective thinking for potent exercise. I started this podcast to enlighten my clients with the power of an intentional and focused approach to exercise. And my practice in Alexandria, Virginia, Impact Your Fitness, is focused on holistic injury care and athletic performance and wellness performance. I have a vision to help people think strategically and be self-led in their fitness with just strength and confidence. And this podcast is really out here to help you change your conversation and your relationship with your exercise and exercise culture, really. So I'm going off this idea that we've just oversimplified exercise and accepted trends as facts. It's my belief that this simple view of exercise has created a huge missed opportunity for most of us, and that experiencing progress is a joy which can be embraced in many areas of self-improvement. And that is a beautiful way to a thought, really, to set up the conversation for today, which is with Kika Mela of Mela Therapeutics in South Florida. She's also the owner of a patented training device called the Kiro, and you can check that out at kiroconcepts.com. There are several links that will point you right to her, and I'm really excited to share this one because this is a conversation she has not had with many people, and I think she is brave, and I completely admire her for doing so. We are talking about life after being a professional athlete. She walked away from her professional sport intact and healthy, which is a miracle considering we are talking about riding racehorses. Yes, she was a jockey. And what I really think is special about this is it answers one of my curiosities in this conversation, because I've worked with Kika in a very close environment during the NFL Combine training, and she's, I'm in her element, I'm in her environment, and it is very obvious that she has this bond with her athletes, these professional mostly male athletes, and upcoming NFL players. And it's not that she knows them very well, but she does have this connection with them, and that is finding out what that is part of this conversation. And I feel very lucky to get to learn from her and share her story with you guys. So here are some of the topics discussed. We bring up the physicality of riding, and hint, it's almost impossible for the majority of the population to complete one time around the track. We provide this insider view on the realities of the dangers of riding a horse and the similarities between being a horse jockey and other sports. Then the big topic, which is finding purpose and bliss after being a professional athlete, walking away from your sport healthy. And she's not just healthy, she helps other people be healthy. And that is just such a beautiful thing. I am really excited. I will say there is one part in this conversation where we talk about sexual harassment and things related to Me Too as far as being an athlete. And I think it's, supposed to be said, and I think we need to hear what that world means to people, and what we can do about getting out from it mentally. Not that, we're going to discuss anything related to the law or whatnot. We're just sharing these experiences, and It's not meant to be offensive. It is really just an honest view of what it was like as a professional athlete in the training room amid a lot of sexual harassment. So that is in the middle. And I really hope you enjoy this episode where Kika Mela discusses life after a professional horse racing jockey career. And you can check her out at Mela Therapeutics on Instagram. Go ahead and follow the Kiro. It is one of the coolest things I've got to use as a, exercise professional and working with athletes as well. So you can get them at Chiro Core on Instagram at KIROCORE. And I will, of course, be on Instagram at Jennifer Simone Schwartz. Or follow the podcast because we do some cool stuff. I just finished going live and it's fun. I want to interact with you guys, and I think a live is a really good way to do that on Instagram and Facebook at thinkfitbefit_podcast. And sign up for the newsletter because we can also interact and dive deep on these concepts and connect deeper with your exercise. thinkfitbefitpodcast.com is where you will find the link to sign up. Don't miss an episode. We are on all these fabulous platforms. But of course, please take some time to share what you're learning and write a review because that's how people find out about us. And I am so in love with podcasting and sharing this information with you guys that I want to do it for a while. Have a wonderful week and please enjoy this episode with my friend and colleague, Kika Mela. Hello and welcome to Think Fit, Be Fit podcast. My name is Jennifer Schwartz. I'm the hostess and creator of this podcast where we are dedicated to effective thinking for potent exercise. Think Fit, Be Fit is the intersection of exercise mechanics, movement expertise, and embracing curiosity. This is an ongoing conversation about the nuances of training and will help trainers, coaches, and fitness lovers connect deeper to their exercise. We're going to get right into it today, guys, because I have a return guest who's very special. And we have known each other for a few years throughout our professional lives. And you got to know her on a May episode about the most functional core trainer I've really ever put my hands on. So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Hi. My name is Kika Mela. I am a licensed massage therapist for the last 25 years, but I have an exercise science degree, been doing that for a while. I am a MAT specialist for the last 12 years, and predominantly my practice involves dealing with a lot of athletes, elite and professional athletes, and trying to help their bodies function well to help them out on the field. I've also created, as you said, the functional core trainer, if you want to call it that. I like that, the most functional core trainer. That's awesome. I'm going to have to quote that somewhere. But I have developed the Kiro Core Trainer, which is a exercise harness designed to actually target the core 360 degrees around the body. And you can use it from seated, from post-surgery to sprinting, which would be for athletic drills or sprints, or any type of turf workout. So you can actually challenge the core dynamically and statically. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. I would also part of the functional piece is that you can put it in a bag and go somewhere with it. You're not married to a gym by using it.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of our clients very creative, taking it outside, using it on the turf, in the weight room, in the rehab setting, anywhere from using it to do squats to scapular specific exercises to, of course, with the core. It's been been really interesting to see how people use it, and it's been fantastic to watch.
Well, I wanted to ask how it feels being being awarded a patent.
Oh, it's so exciting!
Yeah,
it's like a bucket list check off, Definitely, I always thought I'd invent something, but to actually have it manifest was wow, that was a huge moment. I think I cried just a little bit, maybe a tear or two, when I got it in the mail and held it in my hand. To think that I actually created something unique enough to be labeled a patent, that was very fulfilling, professionally and personally.
cool.
So my patented sliding ring exercise harness. Yes,
Exactly. Yes, gotta get that in because man, it really is it's a big achievement. So yay, congrats.
Did I tell you how I found out that I actually had a patent number?
Well, it was really close to when we recorded the first episode, and I think it was also close to your birthday or something.
So it was in June.
Uh-huh.
So I knew that we were in the last stage. We had gone our back and forth with the patent office, and so I'm thinking like this should go through. I don't think they didn't contest anything else. I got a solicitation in the mail from these patent plaque makers that were saying congratulations on patent number 10,702 whatever on your patent, and if you'd like to frame it, call us. So I looked, I'm like, I didn't get nothing from my lawyer yet, right? I didn't hear anything from my lawyer or from the patent attorney. So I looked up the patent number, and sure enough, there it was.
Oh my God. Oh, that's cool.
The solicitors beat everybody. And I wish I'd have kept it, because what they give you is very anticlimactic. It's like a book, like a little workbook type looking thing. It's nothing you can hang on your wall.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Yeah, I feel the same way about some of those things hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But this I would have hung. This is something I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. Check it out.
Yeah.
For a little while, and then I get tired of it.
I've seen patents be hung up in people's offices. So
yeah. It's not the real. No. That's the solicitor's job. They sold them that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it'll kind of look weak next to all those jerseys you have in your office anyways.
Oh yeah. Well, we were blessed with those. Those were gifts. That's the best kind, is when you just walk in and you see it. Oh wow, thank you. Where'd this come from?
Nice.
Those are the best gifts right there. That's best.
Cool. So we're having an unscripted conversation, no real agenda here, except to explore what your experience was and is as professional athlete to helping, and to having like a physical job and maintaining fitness. And really, I'm here to learn and absorb and take myself out of the sports that I know, because they certainly aren't horse racing. I come from a soccer background. I've gotten to know football over the past handful of years, and a little bit about baseball, and various clients teach me a lot about sports. So it's always good for me as a practitioner and as someone who just loves the conversations about strength and conditioning and building our bodies, and post-injury care. And, I just love talking about those things. So yeah. And it's not something you talk about often, so I'm honored.
It's near and dear to me, because it was like a great decade of my life that was dedicated to the horse racing industry. And despite what a lot of people say, it was a wonderful experience. There's always bad apples in every industry, and thankfully I worked for people that respected the horses and did a great job with the horses. But with everything, there's always negative or whatever. But it was just one of the best times of my life. When I was young, I started that. I've been around horses all my life, up from like 8 years old or 7 or 8 years old. And when I got a car at age 16, I had to get a job. So a friend of ours suggested the farm in Jupiter. I was in Jupiter, Florida, and they had a farm for horses that would rehab. It was a rehabilitation farm for racehorses. And so they said they needed some help. And I really had no plans of continuing horses as a profession. I wanted to be a doctor. But when they said, like, well, it's racehorses, so maybe you could be a jockey, that was something as a kid I would race down the street on my pony thinking I was in the races. So I was like, well, why not? What the heck? So to support my car, and I got a job at a horse farm, which would handle horses that were coming off the track that had injuries or needed a rest, a break from racing. And so that's how it all started back there in Jupiter.
That is so cool. It's like you're staying in like a true, your true north almost. Like you recognized early on that there was something wonderful about that transition, perhaps, of athletic, bouncing back, learning, growing. That's really cool.
It changed. When I look back, when I got into exercise as a more of a profession, I started to realize a lot of things about horse racing that, wow, it was an exceptionally physical, challenging job, and very, very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. So as I look back, it's definitely what I learned in the physicality that I had to endure as a rider. Helped my creative juices of the Kiro core trainer. Definitely had a strong influence in things that I've done since, learning about different sports. I take lessons in everything I can to understand my clients better. So it kind of helped me understand, why I got into MMA and hockey and playing all those sports and taking quarterback lessons, all that kind of stuff. It just kind of helped me. But having my experience, I knew I had to feel things. So I would do trades and stuff to kind of learn more about the different sports. But horse racing, so I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but I started out, there's different levels in dealing with horses. And I tried to make sure that I rode them because that's the best job, in my opinion. So I came on the racetrack down here in Miami as an exercise rider, which is basically you take the horses out and do what the trainer tells you to do. I had been with horses for a decade about up until then. I maybe fell off 3 times in those 10 years because the saddle went underneath my pony twice. So that's 2. And then maybe I just assumed a 3rd. So I never really fell off. I thought I was a good rider. And I started working with the racehorses on the farm, and I fell off 3 times in 1 week. And it was crushing and very humbling, to say the least.
Yeah.
And the physicality of it, just at the farm, it was a little different. But once I got on the actual racetrack, there's people that have ridden horses their entire lives, and they get on one racehorse, the style of riding that it is. And if they survive 1 round around the racetrack, it's a miracle. And when they get off, if their legs don't crumble underneath them, that's a miracle. Because it is one of the most physically challenging things I've ever done in my entire life.
That's cool. What about the male and female distribution in that sport? Does it exist? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, absolutely. When I started right out of high school, I was 18 and I started at the racetrack. So that was 1988. My age here. Women had actually been a part of horse racing, and there was exercise riders there. There was not a lot of female jockeys, there were up and coming, but it was there was still definitely a male bias there. I had trainers tell me flat out to my face that they wouldn't ride a female, they wouldn't use a girl. And they had, back when the first female rider started, there was boycotts. The jockeys refused to ride. They boycotted the races, and the women would have people yelling at them and people not wanting to go to the track. I mean, they underwent so much abuse to actually just ride a race. And I think about it now, I'm like, how ridiculous is that there's I think it's called Jockey. There's a little documentary about it, and they're interviewing the public and the jockeys back when the first female riders came out. And women should be home, they should be taking care of us, they shouldn't be out here. Oh yes, this was the norm. This was the common thought process of what women's roles were. And being a rider is a very physically challenging. It's one of the few professions where men and women compete equally, where there's no differentiation from female races versus male races. It's equal. And I've known there's so many female jockeys out there that have just paved the way for when I arose, to where it was easier to get rides. Being an exercise rider was easier than being a jockey, which eventually led me to going to Canada, because when I decided, after I learned that as an exercise rider, you get practiced of potentially becoming a jockey. And when I was ready to get my license, my jockey license, and I had about 30 races under my belt from people like Frank Posada, people that wanted to help everybody and they were willing to use females. There wasn't a lot though down here in Florida. And one of the best advice I was given is, once you get good at something, leave, because the people down here just remembered me falling off every 5 feet or having horses run off with me. So I had heard Canada was very female friendly. So I moved my tack to Fort Erie, which is across the border from Buffalo, and eventually made it to Toronto, where I rode and I won a lot of races. I was actually nominated for one of the top awards in North America for basically like Rookie of the Year award. I was kind of nominated for that. Unfortunately, my competition was the biggest phenom that's hit the racing industry in the last 20 years. So I was just a placeholder. There was no way I could have won this. There's no way I should have won that award. So I was just there filling space, basically. But
but it was alongside someone like that probably also really, being alongside greatness on a regular basis, let alone competing, that's pretty phenomenal, I would imagine.
And up in Toronto, I was around the best and some of the best riders in all of Canada. I was at Woodbine. That was the best of the best in all of Canada, and some in North America. Obviously in the States, New York, California, and Kentucky were the best of the best in the United States. But they welcomed me. They didn't care if I was a female or not. There was a lot more openness up in Canada. And then the people down here, they felt like, women couldn't compete physically with the male riders because it is a extremely physical sport. Let me just give you an example of what it might feel like to ride. Let's say you're riding a horse that wants to pull. Okay. They all want to run, and your job is to keep them from running away. Okay. So you have to put the brakes on them a little bit. And the brakes are your hands and your feet. They don't have brakes, basically. So imagine, have you ever water skied?
No, but I've ridden a horse.
Okay, totally different. Nope, totally different. So, okay, how about this? Imagine being on a ledge with just your toes on the ledge and wrap a rope around a tree. A big oak tree. Okay. Squat down, really, like where you're perched on this ledge, and try to pull the tree over. And then hold that. position. So as an exercise rider, I might have to hold that position 3 to 5 minutes without letting go, without relaxing. As a rider during a race, it's easier because you're letting them run. But you still have to squat and hold your body weight up with just your toes in the stirrups. And then you get to turn them loose coming towards to go for home. And then it's the extremely cardiovascular where you're pushing and pushing, you're squatted down, you're pushing, you might be whipping or whatever it is you're doing. And then having that horse want to either run away with you at all times or possibly run through a fence or whatever reason. So you're in that position. And if you can't hold them into a straight line during a race, you could clip the heels of the person next to you or in front of you. And that's when you go down and, like a flat tire, when people walk behind you and they get your foot, your shoe, that's called clipping heels. And your horse clips the heels of the one in front. 90% of the time you're going fall down with the horse and then get run over top of by everybody else behind you.
God. Whoa.
So if you can't hold your horse, if you don't have the physical strength to hold the horse where it needs to be, or if for whatever reason the horse coming up on your outside scares them, they might want to make a left turn into the fence. So you got to hold them and keep them running at the same time. And if you relax, you could be through a fence and dead or severely injured. So because of the physicality that's required, initially women can't do that. Women, forget it. You guys aren't strong enough, or coming down the lane when you're really trying to encourage that horse to run. It's very physical to push them. And they didn't think that we had it in us, but thankfully we proved them wrong. And I was built like a little bulldog. I had muscles upon muscles. I could hold myself in for fun, I might do a pull up and hold, and I could be there all day long, not with barely even breaking a sweat. It was the physical challenges was just nothing I've come close to something since then, but you had over 8 packs and if it was just unbelievable, the physicality of it.
So what comes close?
So on the craziness of a horse, if you've ever been on a jet ski on extremely rough waters and you kind of you weren't sitting on the jet ski, you were letting it move underneath you. And then diving, and that's getting on most racehorses have a little craziness to them. So that's like a horse that wants to buck with you or rear. So that's the action is like that, like really bad rough seas. And believe it or not, jiu-jitsu has come the closest to the physicality. So if you're rolling with somebody and you have your grips on, because horse racing is a lot about the grips and your balance. And with jiu-jitsu, if you get into somebody, but you hold them, you grab the lapels or something, or you grab their sleeves and you're trying to hold on. If you can't hold the position and you relax a second, that means that you might have just given them an inch that they could flip everything around on you, either sweep you, escape, or something. So you have to be able to maintain that hold. Obviously, if I was a better jiu-jitsu person, I would probably have to rely on that less. Just like as I got better with riding racehorses, it takes 2 to pull. So if I learned how to calm the horse, I didn't have to fight as much on the pull. So I could just set their head against the resistance, but not have to fight the whole way.
What's a average career length for a jockey?
They're out there 60 years old now. My girlfriend Laura, she went back to Laura Kornmeyer. She was retired. She had kids. We came out at the same time. We started around the same time, 89 or 90. She started racing, had kids. Kids grew up, decided she wanted to go back at it. I think she rode she's older than me. I'm 50, so she's older than me. And she went back into riding until she broke her back recently, unfortunately.
Wow.
It's if you don't get beat up too bad, and you have the mounts. If nobody will put you on a horse, and it doesn't matter how fit you are, if you can't hustle up the mounts, then it doesn't matter. But 50s or 60s, yeah, believe it or not.
Wow. And then
those are the strongest old people you've ever seen in your life.
And then so when you're in that like physical shape, like how much of the year do you have to maintain that?
It depends on what you do. So for most riders, they ride year round.
Wow.
So and if they have a problem with their weight, bulimia is rampant, starvation, anorexia, rampant, abuse of diuretics and colon cleanser, I don't know how to say it nicely, rampant through there. And the problem is most riders aren't truly anorexic or bulimic, where they have this self-image problem. It's to make weight every single day. Mm-hmm. So they might go in the sweat box. They might blow the weight all the time, but they have to make that weight. So they have to be physically fit year round and do that year round, because people forget about you real quick. If you're hot, you got to keep riding. And a lot of the racing industry is seasonal. So you have a circuit you might do. Florida is one of the few year-round places in the country. California and Florida, New York as well, but it's miserable in the winter. So very few take off. I took off in the winter one year because I just wanted to, and then you get fat. And for us, my body weight was like 106. And for me, fat was 110. Like that was fat.
Yeah.
And everybody would tell you too how fat you were. If I was riding that day and I went into the kitchen because I needed a drink of water or a piece of toast, they would let me know that you're going to spread out back there if you eat that toast. Your weight is everybody's business. If you're overweight, they announce it on the loudspeaker for the entire public to listen to, because it can affect betting.
Yeah. So,
and if you're 5 pounds overweight, you are pulled off that horse and you are not allowed to ride that horse anymore. If anything has changed since then, I apologize if there's any rule changes that I'm not aware of, but they announce it, and you're overweight, and then the next day you go around to talk to your clients about riding their horse, and you didn't make the weight the other day, so I don't know if I can ride you, and all of a sudden your livelihood is affected. They don't think you can make the weight.
So I'm curious as to, first of all, I just learned how much MMA and a jockey would have in common. Like, that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And then how does one maintain that strength with the weight looming over them constantly, and that it is everyone's business? Like, where does it come from? Is it so much like in here, I would imagine too? Like, wow. Yeah.
Determination, just pure like mental toughness. Jockeys are just like fighters, like MMA fighters. They have to lose weight, within 8 weeks once they get a fight, or however much time they have. And they have to maintain a certain level of strength and endurance, so they don't have to build it all when they have a fight. With riders, it's daily, and it's not easy. Most riders back in the day, they were less apt to be in a gym. Nowadays, they're more apt to have a nutritionist to help them with their diet. They're more apt to do rehab type exercises. Before, you would jog around the racetrack with your trash bags on and blow some weight if you didn't, to not only blow weight, but to get fit before, and then just riding the horses would get you fit. Without, nobody ever stepped in a gym. Now it's definitely, they definitely progressed, and they're starting to treat themselves like athletes more. and which is what would frustrate me sometimes with the MMA world. And unless you got to a certain level, they didn't treat them like athletes. They didn't have trainers there. You had the guy that would come rub on you, or you didn't have a chiropractor on site like we do at Bomarito. You didn't have a lot of this. You would get the horse chiropractor or the horse vet that would crack the horse's back, would come crack people in the stall somewhere or in a feed room. They'd come and, here, doc, crack my back. And the rehab was limited. Gotten a lot better now, but it wasn't easy. Just a lot of weight reduction and getting on horses to get fit.
Wow. I'm laughing at the fact that the horses get more resources than.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Even back then, like you'd have this guy selling a bone stimulator and this one coming with new supplements and this person coming by with the magnetic blanket to put on the horses and the fancy shoes, like the different types of shoes to put on the horses. And oh yeah. A chiropractor, acupuncturist for the horses. Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't shady even back then, and so I can't imagine where that is now. Did you learn anything about self-care from your horses?
Don't hit the ground. Make sure, hang on for dear life. Learn how to ride better, because man, hitting the ground sucked, and you get beat up a little bit for that. I was fortunate at the racetrack. It's not if you get hurt, it's when and how severe. I know too many people paralyzed, and too many people that have died, people that have had pelvises crushed, ribs crushed, multiple, almost every bone broken at some point in their life. It's not for the weak of heart, that's for sure.
Because every time you compete, you're giving into you've committed.
And it's a potential for severe injury every time. Even as an exercise rider, every single time you get on a horse or get around a horse, that's a potential for traumatic injury. You are not allowed on the racetrack to either exercise a horse or for the races if the ambulance is not on site. And the ambulance sits right outside or during a race, the ambulance actually follows the race around. They're behind the horses, following them that 1.5 miles or however long the race is, because they want to be there immediately. And that's just how severe the potential for injury is. Wow.
And then what did you accumulate over this career?
I don't want to jinx myself, because sometimes I still get on horses. But let me just tell you, I was so extremely fortunate that I was able to walk away and function well, and had just the most glorious experience at the track, instead of a lot of my friends, everyone had a back fracture or something broken, a collarbone, or, organ damage if the horse stepped on them or something. I was very, very fortunate. But you could have a typical day, you could even just have a horse snatch you to try to take the reins out of your hands, and you get whiplash because of the force is so violent. Or stumble and all of a sudden you just snap, your neck just snaps like that. And it could have been nothing. But they're very flighty, so they could be very mild-mannered, and the next thing you know, they've jumped 6 feet to the left, and you're literally like a cartoon character hovering in the air until you hit the ground.
Yeah. I'm curious how, when the this motion, what's that called?
Well, that's pushing. That's okay. Trying to make them go faster. That's not holding them anymore. So you get set, you get lower, so you're more aerodynamic. You get closer to their body. And also this is because if you were this low the entire race, you'd wear yourself out. So you get a lot lower in the stirrup. You're perched in the stirrups. You scrunch down aerodynamically, and your hands are on their neck. And every time that they would extend their neck, you would help them. It's like pushing them and helping them.
Oh, okay.
Every time they
yeah.
extend out.
Okay. And then, so like, that's going to be in super intense cardio.
Oh,
because
sure.
especially because your arms are close to your heart. So that blood is just,
wow. Pumping.
Yeah.
Oh, and also because you're in an isometric position with your legs moving under you like pistons. Some people move all as a whole, their back and their legs, but most people, the horse runs underneath them. So that's like 1,000 squats for a quarter mile or so of squat and cardio.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, that is a ton. I mean, how could you even measure that amount of force going through there? That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And don't forget that if you don't whip the horse, or at least look like you're whipping the horse, you will get in trouble because it looks like you're not, unless you're in front. But if you are not looking like you're trying to get the most out of it, so you're not only pushing here, you're also whipping left or right or whatever to encourage the horse to go. And you could get fined if you don't look like you're encouraging the horse enough.
Okay.
So I might flash the whip or, splay it, or if they're running their hearts out, I'm not going to beat them up for nothing. I'm not going to beat them up, but some of them are lazy.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to beat them up for it. Yeah.
Well, there's the human element means there's also manipulation involved. Is that why that rule exists?
Yes, because people cash out large bets. So the trick is that you hold the horse for a couple of races where you don't let the horse run its full capacity. Like if you're going to try to swindle the bettor or, try to cash a big bet, you make sure the horse doesn't run to its full capacity. And then you put him in a race and then he just wins by however many. And because he wasn't a favorite, you place your bets on it and the odds are better. I don't know how often that happened because nobody ever approached me I always wondered if I wasn't somehow in other people's plans, like let the bug girl, that's what you call an apprentice, a bug rider, let the bug rider go in front, and then they might have been doing stuff behind me that I had no idea.
Well, yeah.
I was
office politics.
Oh yeah, politics, defrauding the public. That's why the FBI gets involved. Wow. So if you do anything bad on the racetrack, or if you are suspected of fixing a race or not riding to the fullest or using things that are illegal, the FBI can get involved because it becomes federal because of parimutuel wagering and stuff. Wow. So they're highly restricted there. People don't realize how restricted it is there.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have gone there mentally. What I want to focus on now is these transitions into being just a person. But I also want to note that this answers a big question, which is why you're talented at what you do now. I mean, the identity that you can help, that you can share, and the space that you can hold with a pro athlete that says, I want to be healthy at the end of my playing career. That's a bond that, you can't even advertise or even really talk about. It's just there. And
common suffering.
Yeah.
Common suffering. That relatable piece there where, I've been there. I've ended my career. That going back to what your first thought was, when I didn't make a long career out of this. I wanted to be a doctor. So your first year you are an apprentice versus journeyman. And that's when most people make their money, and it's much more complicated than you probably want to get into. But anyway, so I decided I just wanted to write a year or so, retire, get back into school, and have that fund my college career, which it did. But when you retire, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I had this really cool job and I was important, and now I'm nobody. I have nobody care, I'm nothing. And I see that in some of my athletes that have had careers, whether it's big careers or small careers, it doesn't matter. It's how much you identified with your career and who you were. If that defined you, you're going to have a much harder time transitioning out of that life than you would if you just change jobs or something. So thankfully, because I didn't do this for wasn't a horse rider. I wasn't a jockey for a decade. I was only a jockey officially for a couple of years, and in the industry for 10 as a rider. But I had something else to focus on. I had school. I put myself in school right away. I had something else to aim for. I had a purpose, and that helped me tremendously get over myself because it took me about a week or two, because I'm like, okay, I'm no longer a writer. It's I'm an ex-writer, whatever. But it's hard when people don't have a purpose, or that's the only thing they know themselves to be, is that. The camaraderie. When I quit the racetrack, I quit racing, but then I stayed on the racetrack for several more years. So I was still a part of the industry. And it's such a unique little rabbit hole to go into. And it's, I can't even begin to describe it, how unique it is, but it was a lot of laughing and a lot of very joking, and people are just having fun or seriousness. But it was this whole big camaraderie that you had going on every single day. And the horses were the bonding you have with the horses. And then I quit all that. When I quit, I had started going to massage school. I'm a massage therapist. So that overlapped for about 4 years. And then I was just too damn tired. So I'm like, okay, I got to pick one or the other. So I've done this. So now I'm going to focus on massage. And I went to a very solitary life, where before I would maybe talk to 100 people or a day and be extremely physical, riding 5 to 7 horses every single day, 6 days a week. I didn't have to go to a gym. Are you kidding? I rocked it. I had abs of steel and biceps like pythons. I didn't need to work out at all. And all of a sudden, from that to just working on 5 or 6 people a day in a very quiet, like I'd go to their home at the time.
Oh yeah, the candles and the music and
and where I can't be very loud and obnoxious, which I was every single day at the racetrack. I had to be calm, and I had to be quiet and peaceful. And I got depressed. I had no idea that I didn't even know I was depressed. And it took a while for me to come to that conclusion that I was missing something in life. And I had all this time. So my friends would go to work at 5 a.m., be done around 9 or 10. Everybody takes naps till the afternoon. So now I was sleeping until 9 or 10 or whenever the alarm. I didn't even have an alarm for about a year. I didn't need it anymore. That 4:30 in the morning was for the birds. And so all my friends that I would hang out with, because everybody at the racetrack had all day. I learned to play hockey. I was playing hockey all the time, and that also helped the physicality. But when that stopped, because once you aren't in the group anymore, you lose touch. And so they would come home and sleep. And when they woke up for their afternoon to go do fun things, I was starting work as a massage therapist. So all of a sudden it was like my friends outside of work, my work itself became very solitary and very quiet. That took a while to recognize and do something about it.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about how much that stimulus change and like being, the environment change and how much that impacts our outlook on the daily, and it happens to, I can think that this would happen to people in the military. I think this could happen to, I see it all the time in the college athletes. My practice in neuromuscular therapy, that's one of my main target. The people that we work with the best are previous college athletes trying to get it together after those few years. So what do you do? Yeah.
I would say a friend of mine, Scott Brewer, actually started a podcast, if I don't mind a little plug here, called the Veterans Entrepreneurial Podcast. Try to help veterans to talk about it's not over. They how to transition better. They're all talking about how to transition into jobs or how to become an entrepreneur or something to kind of ease that transition from their experience from military to civilian life. And that's kind of what it is in regards to being an athlete. Like my football players, their whole world was dictated to them. Their off season was filled with training schedules and bodywork schedules. Everything is dictated to them, or they've had to create this schedule of workout, train, have a little fun, workout, train, go football starts, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever time. And then all of a sudden say that they're a free agent and they're at home now for the first time ever with nothing to do and all their friends are gone. People that they would, after working out, they'd go get lunch together or something, or they go hang out or something, play video games together or whatever it is they do. That's all of a sudden gone because everybody's working. And so that's what I kind of suffered as well, even though it took me a while to realize it. But now I can relate when I talk to these guys and maybe help them, like, well, find a hobby. Like I went back to school. So after I got married, I met Roberto and got married after I had quit the racetrack completely. So, and I promised myself I'd get a bachelor's degree, and I had started school a couple of times. Got segued from being a jockey. Then I got segued by being a massage therapist. So I went back to school, and then all of a sudden I was slammed. I had no time to do anything. And that's when I met Pete Bomarito. And then I just went from studying all the time to then working in that industry, and that kind of like filled that gap and that void. And so now I have a very similar environment to what I was lacking. And it's been a godsend. And let me tell you, I told this to Pete one time. I'm just going to plug in my thing here. So at the racetrack, as a female, I was, this is just something in general. I was sexually harassed every single day, about 1,000 times a day, every single day. And you just roll with it. And kind of, you learn how to give it back just as good as you got or worse. And you dealt with being, people looking at you, propositioning you. If you had to stand up to check your stirrups because you're squatting, so when you stand up, you're bent over at the waist. So your ass is out there for everybody to see and people commenting on it and whatever it is. So you got that 1,000 times a day. And I started working in this industry with all these athletes, and I was expecting, gender roles or, having to worry about these athletes. And I was still young enough to where I wasn't out of their demographic to date. I was it 35 or 36 or something? So I was still, within the realm. Let me tell you, I have not had any problems. Maybe because I'm over at Pete's place or something, but nothing about being a female over there has been a problem.
I grew up in the restaurant and bar industry, so it was,
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't have, there wasn't much you could say that, would have gotten me upset. But then once you realize that was happening to you, and that um, it's just an emotional layering, and you have to kind of just peel these layers back of, wow, I was in that environment, and now I have to retrain my body and my brain to be in a safe environment.
Yes.
And that,
and not tolerate it.
yeah.
It took, when I talk to my friends now, I've been out of the industry. Geez, I retired, I think in 99 or some golly. And I talk to people from there, and some of the things and the jokes that they make, I'm just like, I used to deal with that every day.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that they're still talking like that. Like I laughed at the joke because I thought I had to, and I thought that that's what I had to put up with. And if I didn't, I was a sensitive female, that couldn't take a joke, or, what's the problem? I'm just joking, and we had to, if you wanted to get along, you had to learn how to roll with it. So that otherwise I would have spent all day offended and in the tack room crying my eyes out, and I wanted to ride horses, damn it. So I'll put up with all your crap to a limit. Just don't touch me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the perfect use of the metaphorical race blinders, right? Or is that what they call them? The blinders? Yep.
Blinkers. Yep.
And yeah, wow. Okay. So let's turn back onto the
sorry about that. Edit that out.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good. Because we're talking about a big transition, and there's a wonderful thing happening right now where I am working with female athletes that are pros, and they have role models. Like, how amazing is that? You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. Well, think about, in soccer we do. And there's just a few, but there's going to be more. And there's going to be, potentially female jockeys listening to this, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm not even like obsessed. There's so many women out there that have done so much better than I am, that are definitely role models for a lot of these young girls. Absolutely.
And it's also, that's that transition piece, like having the awareness, finding a structure, finding that structure, finding the next thing, the next goal. Like you lived it, but I like it's, and your and it sounds like you coach it a little bit into your current clients. Stop hair. And so like, let's put a pin in that. What else is there's a physical piece we haven't talked about, which is what what I'm actually is my scope of practice. It's helping prevent further arthritic damage in a 25-year-old. It's helping people understand the difference between competition and workout.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. So everything I did at the racetrack, I wouldn't recommend. But one thing that really stuck with me, and as I learned about exercise and I learned about the body, and I thought about what I used to do and what was the good things that came out of the physicality that I did. It was I did maximum isometric contractions, full body, every day, multiple times a day, for duration. And though I wouldn't recommend that to everybody, just whatever, it made me so strong that it's survived. It had given me a foundation of a body that was strong. And so as I get older, my strength has maintained with less effort. Like I'll do the same thing I did before, but it laid such a foundation and changed my body, I think, in a way that it has helped me throughout the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's invaluable for me, that I was given that physical foundation without the major F-ups, the major damaging things, that that also started to make me think, like, when we think about some of the things that we do isometrics a lot, and isometrics generate a lot of strength. And it doesn't mean you can't move dynamically within that, but it's one aspect that I gained a lot of respect for when I look back on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, keeping that physical fit. And now there's things that I'm like, the other day I did on my balcony, where we have our exercise bikes and stuff set up. I mimicked riding a racehorse physically with a band, and I held it, and I was shaking when I finished, so just kind of like a change up in adding that and learning from that has helped a lot. Taking the good part of that and applying it to the body to try to stay fit in the future.
Yeah. Well, I've referenced this like one or two times on this podcast, but there's a small study that I found that they did on women, and they did 30-second isometric contractions in the quads, and then pulled their blood for checking the anabolic reactions chemically. And these isometrics that were 30 seconds for the quads elicited similar metabolic byproducts as sprinting.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
I believe it.
Yeah. So I use that as a selling point for people often. I get asked often about my body. I get asked often about what I do to train. And it really it has come back down to a foundation of isometrics.
Interesting.
For years, I didn't practice it as a soccer player.
Right.
My strength training regimen as a soccer player was a rep range of like 10 to 12, and just, doing the machines. And I had a lot of respect for machines. And I was kind of raised through my programming that way for, since I was 16 until I was, through college and through playing after that. And, we didn't have like ladders and like running through like cones and any of that stuff. I just did strength training and played soccer. But then after that, I learned about isometrics through, all of our colleagues and being an exercise professional. And that has helped me the most as to maintaining posture, strength, all of the things, and it enables me to visit, have a workout once a week where I go to failure. That's one of my things. I really like working out once a week with a back squat to almost failure. And I don't pick up a barbell besides that during the week. And but so I've used that study several times to like tell that story.
Okay. That's interesting though. I like that because I've lived that, and I'm like, yeah, I felt like when I was in my prime as a rider, when I was getting on so many horses a day, I could have taken on any exercise, like whatever you want me to do, maybe not a marathon, but I could run, I could do this. Like I was so, it transitioned over to multiple hockey. I mean, we played hockey in 12 o'clock sun down here in Florida for hours, and wouldn't get tired. And that was all because of the riding. I was already fit, and that just added more fitness to me, I guess you could say.
Were you on skates, or was this like a field hockey?
Rollerblades.
Yeah. So that's a really good, actually, that's a good transition, I think.
Yeah, it was very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like the sport that I've chosen to like kind of embrace in my 30s has been golf. And my hips from soccer have stayed, been able to help me in that sport, right? It's, people, the conversation on athleticism and golf is totally changing, and it changes all the time. And you and I know this is definitely going to be changing.
Yes.
And, but yeah, I mean, a transition to soccer players, can usually learn a golf swing pretty quickly, whereas baseball players might have a little bit more trouble, because of I think the hand-eye coordination is just completely different. But yeah, it's a hip dominant sport.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And with the kick, you're slamming into that internal rotation on the left leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a right-sided kicker, the same as like slamming into the left hip with the golf swing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really similar. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in my head, I had the image of this golf instructor I had a couple months ago who had these crazy, crazy legs and hips, and I couldn't, like, they just rotated, and they had that bow-legged. Yeah, he was completely, I don't know. What do you say? It's not, when the knees go out. Valgus. Yeah. Varus. Completely varus.
Oh,
His
wow.
rotation was insane. And
wow.
He could like whip himself around. It was wild. Anyways, so I would stare at him during our sessions and be like, "What's going on there?" And he probably thought, I don't know what he thought, but anywho, what other elements of athleticism have you, like, do you connect to this time and like what you use now?
Like I said, when I got into MMA, I shouldn't say complete MMA. When I turned 40, I started training in jiu-jitsu and boxing, very regularly. And that, there's such similarities in the physicalness and the fitness levels to be able to do either one of those sports, either horse racing or MMA style. I'll just keep it jiu-jitsu and boxing because I didn't combine them. I didn't want to get hit in the head. I had enough head hits with the horses. I didn't need to add to it. But the physicality was it's really similar. The need, because when you do jiu-jitsu, you roll with somebody for about 5 minutes. So that's like when you practice, you spar with jiu-jitsu, it's a 5-minute time frame. And you have to learn how to pace yourself, because otherwise you burn out in the first 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're just a rag doll for them to do whatever they want to with you, because you literally cannot do anything. No matter how much you try, you're exhausted, which was similar to where if you weren't fit for a horse that was extremely tough, wanted to run away with you the entire time, and you had to hold it at a certain speed for 5 minutes, you might not be able to make it. And I swear, the terminology, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. In my opinion, I swear to gosh, it came from the horse racing industry, where if you relaxed half an inch on the reins, you got run off with a full mile, because that's all they need they need that little bit of give, and they're gone they're gone.
Yeah.
So the physicality then, and also, as I created the Kiro core trainer, it was a lot about trying to challenge the core, and I realized there was so many similarities to horse racing and the core challenge or race horse riding, I should say, not traditional Western or English, of what the Kiro would actually do for me. So I think what gave me such a great foundation was this core strength that I developed. And the Kiro core trainer actually helped me do it on land, I guess you could say, instead of on the back of a horse. It enabled me a way to really challenge my core, very similar to what I would feel if I had a horse that wanted to go to the outside fence. I had to hold it that way. I could set it up to where I could feel that same resistance and I could hold it if I wanted to. I could rep it out if I wanted to, for duration or time, whatever. And so that was the foundational thought process when I first started developing the Kiro. Like, how can I do that? And that kind of pushed me along to finish making it and develop.
That's awesome. Yeah. That. When did it like first spark the idea for it?
As I was learning more exercise mechanics in my job as an MAT specialist, and up to then, I'd been working with athletes and using my practice, massage therapist, but the MAT specialist. And my sessions with MAT were so much better when I added an isometric component to reinforce what I just treated. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is what everybody's talking about. Because I didn't have a clue how to apply the exercises. There's no class on that for us related to putting it all together. There's no class for that. And so when I started to add isometrics as reinforcement exercises based on what I treated, it exponentially improved my sessions with my athletes. And then as I started to be able to reverse engineer things, I started to understand whatever, I noticed that I always had to go back to the core for so many things. Hamstring problems. I might treat a little bit of the leg, but I'd always go back to the core, or shoulder issues or back problems or groin issues. And I was like, and then when I gave them the isometrics to take or to give to the coaches to do like active rest or something on their, because they'd see me once or twice a week, but they trained every single day. So we would incorporate it with their training every single day. And everybody started noticing it was getting better. And I was like, I can't do this on my table all the time. This needs to be done in weight rooms, needs to be done on the turf. It's not something I should have to deal with as much as I am. So that's where the Kiro also manifested as a way to do what I kept having to redo. Even if they had 6-pack abs or an 8-pack, and they could hold a plank for 5 minutes. Once they got out on the field, they couldn't control it anymore dynamically. So static core strength is great, or in a little 2x2 area, but when you're running and your hips are going maximum range of motion and you've gotten people coming all directions, and
or they're coming up from underneath of you.
Yeah. And you're changing directions on, cutting and doing all that stuff. The core takes it the whole different situation, a whole different scenario, and a completely different group of forces going through the body that you have to be able to withstand for safety, to avoid injury and to be fit for that.
Thanks for saying that, because we kind of covered that on the first podcast we did, but as I said, we got a lot of new listeners, and I don't think that stuff can be said enough. And I guess the last the thing I also think is really interesting about this story and this conversation and what came up for me was thinking about the fighting and the jockey, and even seeing the pictures of you and Roberto doing some acro yoga. It's like this.
That's our new thing now.
Yeah. It's an interaction with another mammal, and those isometric contractions on the other end of this, and like when you're a fighter, how many steps ahead do you have to think about the physical when you're working in that manner, and how many steps ahead do you have to think about with the horse? And the acro yoga, we could talk about rock climbing in the same way, but there's no other mammal. Well, unless you have somebody spotting you. So there's a whole nother,
for sure.
Just interesting. Yeah. Just a really interesting way to think about the training aspect, and I guess the energy going back and forth. So cool.
I let me tell you, my sensitivity to when I was riding horses, like a little piece of paper could mean life or death. If it fluttered across and your horse saw it and spooked, like he could turn around and be gone and you could be on the ground like in a snap. Or someone pulled up behind the hedge and opened and closed their car door. My sensitivity to my environment was through the roof, and my sensitivity to what my horse, every quiver I felt, even if I'm talking to my friends and trying to, laughing, joking, whatever, I had such a separate awareness going on of my environment and what was going on beneath me that I don't know if I could ever recreate that. And I never got good enough at, say, jiu-jitsu or boxing but I can imagine where you would, as a jiu-jitsu person, you're basically riding somebody on the ground sometimes, so when they start to twitch or start to, as the higher levels, you feel when they shift their weight, and you know what that means. As a rider, I could have told you what every shift. I watch horses now and I'm like, oh, that's not looking good. Sure enough, within a few minutes, that horse is upside down, like on some YouTube video. Like I could tell everything. I never got good enough at jiu-jitsu but that's that interaction and that's that energy exchange. I think you start to feel that push and pull. They're shifting their weight. What happens to your body as they do this? And a master black belt in jiu-jitsu or a boxer or a Muay Thai fighter, they set you up for mistakes, and they lure you into things to take advantage of. They try to manipulate you to do what they want so that they can finish you and get you to, or they're able to react in a split second in a positive way, in a good way.
Yeah. I think, it's time to cut our podcast off.
I'm sorry. Well, thank you for letting me blab on all this time about like the good old days.
No, I think it's cool. I mean, it's really cool to share, and like I said, I think it just adds another layer of respect from me to you, and I think it's a really good thing to tell our story, especially since we both see the same problem as, what do you do mentally, physically, emotionally with this transition, and just, I think one story can make a difference for someone. So thank you.
If I could just one quick comment on that, because I wanted to get to this and I totally forgot. So when you're about to transition from something that you identified so strongly with, and it's who you are as a person, and all of a sudden you're no longer that, whether from injury or retirement or whatever, you can't get hired again. So you're forced, worst is when you're forced retired. I found that I'm always good when I follow my passion or my curiosity. I find something that sparks my mind and I learn something new, and that will give me that sense of vitality and that sense of wonder, and life is great, and I'm no longer stuck in who I was or what I was doing before. I'm stuck in, wow, this is such a cool thing. Look what I'm learning. Like jiu-jitsu, I became obsessed with this, the MMA and hockey and all these different things. And there was a physical component that I needed as well as a mental.
Mm-hmm.
When I learned about MAT, that consumed my brain, and it was a physical job. The harness consumed my brain, but I was able to transition into a physical research and development. I know myself, I needed a physical and mental component for me to be at my happiest and to be at my bliss. And trying to, when I don't satisfy either one, either my curiosity to learn or my physicality, that's when my levels start to drop. Either you get depressed, get unhappy, or what's the point, or what am I going to do with my life? If I could stress people to find something that you enjoy and you're passionate about, and it'll help you get out of that transition or become your new, all my stuff that I became fascinated by became my next job. basically. That became what I became good at or whatever, and I somehow made money at it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got that out, because that is gold. That level of,
put that at the beginning.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the level of transmission. It comes is I think the good word that we need to see. And I I had a really rough transition myself, but finding that mix for me, which was the people, the movement, and I guess just like finding the thing you want to read about, and I didn't stop until I did, until I found it. And MAT was the thing that really was that cold water, like, oh yeah, that splash of cold water that just said, yes, this is, you can
do something else
with your hands, and you can teach athletes how to take care of their bodies before they end up in a surgeon room, and
you're still in the environment.
Yeah,
you're also close to that environment again. Now you come at it from a wizened perspective as opposed to the player, but you're trying to be who you wish you had when you were there on the team. You were in the training room.
Yeah, retweet. Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay. Well, thank you for hanging out with me this Saturday.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope things go well down there in Florida over the next couple weeks.
Let's hope it's all good and we're all out of the woods here.
Yeah. Tell everyone where to find you. If you have a new blog that they need to check out, what's happening.
Okay. On my practice, Therapeutics.com, but the Chiro is found on our website, chiroconcepts.com, and at Chiro Core on Instagram. We will be having a virtual booth at the NSCA virtual convention hall starting October 19th. So I'm excited for that. So come check us out on the NSCA website, the expo hall, expo hall will be there. And we might be doing some work with a company called Flexline Fitness, which is a pneumatic type of exercise cable system that you'd like this, Jen. It has the push button control. So if you wanted to drop weight within the set, you hit the button. It's like a Kaiser machine, but it's a handheld pressing. So, or the coach has it. Either you can have it or the coach has it. So we might be being part of them as an accessory.
That's cool. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, actually. And I think you said that I'd like it because I love a good muscle burn.
Yeah. But you also like to be in control. But you like to be in control. Where if you feel like it's too much weight for the client, you can stand there like, oh, we need to drop that weight a little bit, or we need to increase it within the set.
Yeah. That's what we need. We need to change the stimulus, change the environment, give them something new, but keeping it functional to the goal and to what we're learning about them on the table. I mean, hell yeah. Like, especially if we want to challenge one side and then the next, like that's fun. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'll send you the link when I get it.
Yeah. Sign me up.
So check us out. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day.
You too, Jen. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for hanging out. I am really looking forward to hearing what you guys thought. Do you love these more personal sides of how I see exercise and finding purpose in your life that includes movement? Do you guys like that? Do you guys want more of these conversations? I certainly enjoyed having them, and I think Kika's doing some great things. I really absolutely support her training device, the Chiro Core. That's KIRO concepts.com. And this product is just so versatile and so functional for rehab professionals to strength and conditioning and things in between. I hope that you check them out and join the conversation on Facebook and Instagram at thinkfitbefit_podcast so that we can dive deeper. And if you want to get more invested in these concepts, check out the newsletter at thinkfitbefitpodcast.com. That's where you're going to find out how to use these concepts, these things that we're talking about, and different tactics on how to have a deeper connection with your exercise. I just think that's one of the best gifts we can give ourselves and provide for our family, our livelihood, our energy. So I just want to share that enthusiasm with you guys. Thanks so much again for being here. It is a pleasure hosting this podcast. Upcoming episodes are really exciting. And don't forget that we have a really exciting addition to the podcast that's coming later this month in October. Please subscribe to make sure you don't miss a thing. Have a great week.